History is full of secrets, affairs hidden in private letters, scandals buried by the slow march of time. But some secrets were never meant to be hidden. Some were carved in stone, displayed in the open sun for all the world to see. And once you know what to look for, you can never unsee them. Today, we're journeying back over 3,000 years to ancient Egypt to uncover one of the most disturbing royal unions in recorded history. A union that wasn't whispered about in secret, denied by courtiers, or erased from the records. It was publicly declared, immortalized in stone, and woven into the very fabric of royal power. In the sun-drenched land of the pharaohs, the walls of temples and tombs did more than just decorate. They were the official record, a visual language where images told stories of power, divinity, and order. And in this language, the images never lied. They communicated the structure of the cosmos and the hierarchy of the kingdom. To understand the shock of what we're about to see, you must first understand the rules of this visual grammar. In Egyptian art, placement is everything. It's a precise, symbolic map of status. Who stands beside the pharaoh matters infinitely more than who kneels before him. Who shares a sacred ritual space matters more than who merely watches from the sidelines. For centuries, the rule was sacred, unbreakable. Gods and kings stood side by wives. The great royal wives stood beside their kings. But daughters, the royal princesses, always stood behind them, smaller in stature, signifying their subordinate role. This was the natural order, the visual confirmation of a stable and divinely ordained world. Until, during the reign of one revolutionary pharaoh, that sacred rule was shattered. Our story centers on the 18th dynasty during the radical reign of Pharaoh Akhenaten. He was a king who turned Egypt upside down. He abandoned the traditional pantheon of gods, including the powerful Omanat, and declared that there was only one true deity, the Aten, the physical disk of the sun. He moved the capital city, rewrote religious doctrine, and declared himself the sole intermediary between humanity and this new god. Alongside him ruled his famously beautiful and powerful queen, Nefer. Together, they formed a holy trinity with the Aten, and they had 6 daughters. The eldest was named Meritaten. In the early art of Akhenaten's reign, we see her depicted just as we'd expect. A small, youthful figure standing behind her powerful parents, a princess in a supporting role. She appears in intimate family scenes, being caressed by the sun's rays, a symbol of the perfect royal family under their new god. Everything is as it should be. But then, as the years pass, something deeply unsettling begins to change in the official artwork. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Meritaten's position shifts. In reliefs called for temples and palaces, she is no longer just a child in the background. She starts to move forward. She is shown in scenes of offering and worship, not just observing, but actively participating. Then comes the ultimate transgression of symbolic law. In several key reliefs, she is depicted standing directly beside her father, Akhenaten, not behind him, beside him. They are shown making offerings to the Aten together, occupying the same sacred space. The space reserved, unequivocally, for a queen. To a modern eye, this might seem like a father showing affection, elevating his favorite daughter. But to an ancient Egyptian, familiar with the rigid rules of royal iconography, the message was immediate, unambiguous, and shocking. This was not about paternal love. This was a formal declaration of status. Meritaten was no longer being depicted as a princess. She was being depicted in the functional role of a queen, a wife beside her kingly husband. On one boundary stele, an inscription even refers to her as the great royal wife. The conclusion is inescapable. The official art, the state's own propaganda, was announcing the marriage of Pharaoh Akhenaten to his own daughter, Meritaten. So why was there no outcry? No revolution. Why did the priests and the people seemingly accept this? We have to remember the context. Akhenaten wasn't just a king. He had made himself a living god, the sole prophet of the Aten. He held absolute spiritual and political authority. He had already torn down centuries of religious tradition, erased the names of the old gods, and defied the entire priestly establishment. If a pharaoh had the power to redefine the very nature of the gods and the cosmos, who was to say he couldn't also redefine the nature of family? In the rarefied air of Egyptian royal ideology, the divine bloodline was everything. It was the source of legitimacy and power. Keeping that divine essence concentrated within the family wasn't always seen as a taboo. In fact, it was often considered a way to preserve cosmic order and ensure the purity of the royal line. What horrifies our modern sensibilities was, for them, framed as a sacred duty. The walls of Akhenaten city remained silent, but in their silence, they recorded everything. This period of radical change, known as the Amarna period, didn't last. After Akhenaten's death, Egypt violently recoiled from his revolution. A systematic campaign was launched to erase him and his heresy from history. His temples were torn down, his new city was abandoned, and his name and the names of his family were methodically chiseled out of monuments across the land. It was an attempt to make it as if he had never existed. But they didn't get everything. In their haste to destroy, they missed things. Buried in the sand, hidden in remote locations, enough reliefs, inscriptions, and artifacts survived, enough to piece together this unsettling story that continues to challenge historians today. The evidence isn't a rumor from a disgruntled courtier or a piece of ancient gossip. It is a declaration, carved in stone and sanctioned by the highest authority in the land. So, the real question isn't whether it happened. The evidence strongly suggests it did. The truly disturbing question is a much larger one. As we look back at the fragments of this story, we are forced to wonder what other uncomfortable truths, what other moral compromises has history simply accepted or even celebrated simply because they were declared and normalized by those in power? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.